Watch two men pass each other on a village path in first-century Galilee, and you will see something invisible. You will see one man step aside, the other continue. You will see lowered eyes and a nod so slight you might miss it.
He does not look back.
You will see the geometry of two bodies rearranging themselves around a force field that has no name in modern English. The ancients had a name for it. They called it honor. Not honor as we use the word, not honorable or honest. Honor as a system, a currency, an operating system that governed every interaction, every transaction, every relationship in the ancient Mediterranean world. You could not buy bread without it. You could not marry your children without it. You could not sit in the synagogue, draw water at the spring, or walk the village path without first knowing where you stood on the invisible ledger that every person in the village kept in their head.
50.
Joseph
That's
lived
ridiculous.
inside
Everyone
this
knows your
system.
reputation.
My
And
price
one
is
night,
final.
Mary's pregnancy tore a hole in the center of his account. This is the story of that ledger and what it cost Joseph to let it burn. Anthropologist Bruce Molina, whose work on the social world of the New Testament remains the standard reference, describes first-century Mediterranean societies as operating on an honor-shame axis,
can shift the whole balance.
not a guilt-innocence axis, which is what modern Western cultures use. The distinction is foundational and missing.
There is no
It
escape
means
now.
misreading
Let the
nearly
record
every
show I
story in the
dispute this claim.
Gospels. In
I
a
sever myself
guilt-innocence
from this
culture, the
accusation
one most
and
of us
return
live
the
in, the
shame
key
to its
question
source.
is, did you break the rules? If yes, you are guilty. The judgment is internal. Your conscience convicts you. You can feel guilty alone at midnight with no one
Is this the
watching.
last one today?
In an
Should
honor-shame
be.
culture, the
Good
one
work.
Joseph and Mary lived in. The key question is different.
Good day, Joseph.
What do
Good
people
day.
think of
Good day.
you?
Good day.
Honor is not about
Strange,
what you
isn't it?
did.
Indeed.
It is about what the
I must do
community
this.
believes you did. The judgment
go.
is external,
The path is open.
public, communal. You cannot be shamed alone. Shame requires an audience, and honor was not abstract. It was economic. A man with high honor could negotiate better prices at market. His sons could marry well. His word was trusted in
The
contracts.
wedding was last month.
His seat in the
1,
synagogue was closer to the front.
3.
A man who lost
not
honor
right.
lost
It never
access
adds
to
up.
all of these, not as punishment but as consequence. The village simply recalibrated. If your honor dropped, your social credit
They
dropped with
stand
it.
with me.
Doors that were open
is my
yesterday
husband.
closed today,
We are
not with a
one.
lock, with a glance.
This is our
This is the
truth.
world Joseph navigated every day. A world where reputation was not a luxury. It was survival. In the honor-shame
Hold on
system,
tight,
a
little
man's
one.
honor was not solely his own achievement.
Oh, what
It was a
sweet
composite
child.
built from two sources. The first
Keep it
ascribed
steady, my
honor.
son.
This was the honor you were born into your family's reputation, your father's
Father.
standing, your tribal lineage.
Keep your shoulders back.
In Nazareth, where families had lived for
Yes,
generations, ascribed honor was deep and resistant to change. Everyone knew whose grandfather had been honorable. Everyone knew whose uncle had been shamed.
Take the water
The
of
ledger
jealousy.
had a long memory. The second acquired honor.
I accept
This was
trial.
honor you earned through public action, through generosity,
bitter.
through defending your family's
test
name,
confirms my
through the
innocence.
daily performance of being a good
But the
man
suspicion
in a
remains.
village that watched everything. Acquired
not
honor
born of
was
sexual
fragile.
immorality.
It had to be
God were
maintained
your
every
father,
day,
you
in
would
every
love me.
interaction, in every meeting on the path, and every transaction at the market. But here is the part that explains Joseph's crisis. In the system, a man's honor was
The
directly
honor-shame
tied to the
system does
sexual
not live in a
purity of the
building.
women in his
It lives
household.
here,
This was not about ownership in the crude sense. It was about
We'll need a
responsibility.
bigger block next time.
The Mishnah
Agreed,
and
this one was
broader
easy.
Jewish legal
Good work,
tradition
brothers.
assigned to
Keep
the
your
male
chin up,
head of
Joseph.
household a specific
Pity him, he
obligation
knows.
to guarantee
I
the
don't trust
moral
him.
conduct of his
He's hiding
wife,
something.
his daughters, and his betrothed. If any of these women was found to have violated sexual norms, the shame fell not only on her, but on him, on his name, on his family, on his ability to function in the village economy. The system offered a standard remedy. When a man's honor was damaged through the conduct of a woman in his household, the prescribed response was public action. Name the offense. Distance yourself from the offender. Demonstrate to the village loudly, visibly, unmistakably that you did not participate, did not consent, and do not condone. This was not cruelty. Within the logic of the system, it was survival. A man who failed to respond publicly to a sexual shame in his household was assumed to be complicit, weak, unable to manage his own family. The village would not punish him formally. It would simply stop trusting him, which in a subsistence economy, where every transaction depended on trust, was a death sentence in slow motion. Joseph's betrothed came home pregnant. The child was not his. Every man in Nazareth knew the script accused divorce, restore your honor. It was written in the social code as clearly as Deuteronomy was written in the Torah. Joseph knew the script. He had watched other men perform it. He knew exactly what the village expected, and he chose to throw the script away.
Good.
Matthew 1:19.
Goodbye, Father.
Two Greek words that carry the weight of a revolution.
Right, like
Dikaios, righteous, law-abiding, and the phrase, not wishing to expose her to public disgrace. In the honor-shame system, these two descriptors should be contradictory. A dikaios man, a righteous man, a man who follows the code should want to expose her. That was the righteous response. That was what the system demanded. Public accusation was not vengeance, it was duty. It was how a dikaios man proved he was dikaios. But Matthew's gospel says something astonishing. Joseph was dikaios, and he chose not to expose her. He was a rule follower who broke the rule, a code keeper who deviated from the code, a man whose entire social identity depended on the honor system, and who voluntarily set his honor on fire. Imagine the scene. Let's walk through what the village would have seen. Joseph does not accuse Mary before the bet din. He does not produce witnesses. He does not file for public divorce. Instead, he marries her quietly, quickly, and within months she gives birth. The village can count. Every woman at the spring can count. 9 months from the wedding too soon. 9 months from the betrothal about right, but the child is born in the marriage, not before it. The math is ambiguous enough to provide cover, but not enough to erase suspicion. And Joseph, the tecton, the stonecutter, the man who walks to Sepphoris every morning to haul rock for 1 denarius, has to live inside that arithmetic for the rest of his life. This is the part of the story that takes 20 years to tell, and most accounts cover in 1 sentence. Joseph did not lose his honor once. He lost it every day. Every morning at the spring, every Sabbath at the synagogue, every interaction at the marketplace where a merchant's body language shifted 1 degree cooler, every wedding where his family's seat was 1 row further back, every conversation that went quiet when he approached. The Proto-Evangelium of James, a 2nd century text not included in the biblical canon, but reflecting very early Christian traditions, preserves a striking detail. It describes a scene in which both Joseph and Mary are subjected to the trial of bitter water, a ritual from Numbers 5:11 to 31 designed to test a wife suspected of unfaithfulness. The suspect drinks a mixture of water and dust from the tabernacle floor. If guilty, the water causes physical harm. If innocent, nothing happens. Whether the bitter water trial actually occurred is not the point. The point is that the early Christian community remembered and recorded the reality that Joseph and Mary lived under suspicion. The tradition preserved the accusation alongside the vindication. The stain was part of the story. And then there is John 8:41. We were not born of sexual immorality. The Greek word is porneia. It is not subtle. It is not ambiguous. And many New Testament scholars, including Raymond Brown, whose work on the infancy narratives remains definitive, read this verse as evidence that the rumors about Mary's pregnancy did not die in Nazareth. They traveled. They persisted. They followed Jesus into adulthood, into his ministry, into public confrontation with religious authorities in Jerusalem. Joseph absorbed this for years in silence, without defending himself, without explaining, without ever telling the village, "An angel came to me in a dream," because who would have believed him? Here is what the honor-shame framework reveals about Joseph that a modern reading completely misses. We tend to read Matthew 1:19 as a story about a kind man making a compassionate choice. And it is that, but it is much more. In Joseph's world, choosing not to publicly accuse Mary was not merely kind. It was socially suicidal. It was the equivalent of a modern professional publicly confessing to a crime they did not commit, and then refusing to recant for decades, while every colleague and neighbor drew their own conclusions. The honor-shame system was designed to prevent exactly what Joseph did. It punished silence. It punished ambiguity. It rewarded public accusation because public accusation was the mechanism by which the community recalibrated. When a man publicly named a wrong, the village knew where he stood. The ledger balanced. Trust was restored. Joseph refused to name the wrong. He refused to balance the ledger. He chose permanent deficit. And the system responded exactly as it was designed to. It did not punish him with stones. It punished him with distance, with cooler handshakes at the market, with a wider gap on the synagogue bench, with the particular silence that falls over a group of men when the one man they cannot categorize walks into the room. In Joseph's world, there was a script. Every man knew it. Every father taught it to his son. Every village enforced it with the precise, relentless pressure of a community that depended on the code for survival. The script said, when your honor is damaged, you name the source. You distance yourself. You restore the balance. The script was clear. The script was safe. The script had worked for 1,000 years. Joseph held the script in his calloused hands. He read it. He understood it. He knew exactly what it would cost to follow it and exactly what it would cost to throw it away. He threw the script away. And for the next 20 years, maybe 30, he lived inside the consequences. Not as a martyr, not as a saint on a stained glass window, as a tecton who walked to work every morning past the same neighbors who had been watching him since the day he married a pregnant girl and never explained why.
The shadows are absolute.
The honor-shame system demanded an answer. Joseph gave it silence. And silence in a world that ran on public declaration turned out to be the most expensive thing a man could offer.